Hey everybody, it's Dave Isaacs coming at you, and I'm at the home studio in Hendersonville, Tennessee today. I wanted to do a lesson on a very familiar song, or I imagine a familiar song to you. It's called House of the Rising Sun, and it was popularized in the 60s by the Animals, but it's a very old song, and lots of artists have done it in lots of different ways. I imagine, though, that this is the way you know it, and this gives us an opportunity to take a good look at picking. It goes like this. And it gives us an opportunity to take a good look at picking. It goes like this. It goes like this. And it goes like this. So first of all, the chords, very simple. A minor, C, D, small f, A minor, C, E7. Now you may or may not be familiar with this form. If you're familiar with a regular E, open position, simple E chord, you might know that we can get E7 by lifting the ring finger, just using two fingers here, by adding the pinky on the second string, third fret, or both. So this is simply a variation on the form I'm holding right now. Instead of holding the fifth string, second fret here, which is the fifth of the chord, I'm simply going to move that finger over to the fourth string, second fret for an octave. And because I'm playing a picked part instead of a straight strum across, I can just skip the A string and do this. It works very well melodically. Ba-da-dum. It's a nice clean sound. And then the second half, A minor, C, D, F, A minor, E7, same fingering, A minor, E7. And I should mention, when I say small f, I mean the 4-string version. If you're more comfortable with the 6-string version, you could do that too. This is, I'm pretty confident, the way that it was played. It works nicely. Many of you may find that more comfortable to reach. A lot of people learn that F chord first. I should just mention, the fingering is ring finger, D string, 3rd fret, middle finger, G string, 2nd fret, and index finger, depending on the proportions of your hand, either covering 2 strings, the 1st and 2nd, or 3 strings, 1st, 2nd, 3rd. The 3rd string note doesn't come into the picture because the middle finger has that string covered. But for the proportions of my hand, I'm much more comfortable holding 3 strings than 2, because what we really want is for this segment of the finger, from this joint here to the fingertip, to do the work to hold down those strings. So it's a small bar. If you have big hands, you might find that it works best just to let the pad of this finger sort of lay across both of them. Some people are comfortable like this. This doesn't work particularly well for me. I can do it, but I have to really hold down. I have to apply some real pressure to hold that down. And this feels more natural to me. Notice that my wrist is dropped. My index finger is basically straight, but leaning a little bit to the side. So it's flat against the strings, but the angle is a little rotated. And this is how I'm getting the best pressure. You should explore a little bit and see what works for you. But ultimately what you want is a basically straight wrist, slightly dropped, an index finger extended, and laying across either 2 strings or 3 strings or even more, whatever gives you the most natural leverage. That's always the trick with a bar chord, is natural leverage. Of course, that's a topic for a whole other lesson in itself. But whatever you've been told about it, I'm sure you may have gotten good advice, but I just want you to keep in mind that your own anatomy, the proportion of your fretting hand, does come into the picture here. So something that works for someone else may not necessarily work for you, or may not be the best approach for you. So just keep that in mind. And that's something to be aware of in every situation. That yes, there are some absolutes, but everyone's hands are proportioned a little bit differently. And then there's variables in the shape of the guitar, the curvature of the neck, the tension and gauge of the strings. So there's much more to think about than just how should I hold my hand. You always want to keep that in mind. But I wanted to really address the picking on this because it's an interesting part and it lets us look at a few different techniques all within the same song. The part is in 6/8 time, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's 1, 2, and 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, and 3, 4, 5, 6. So what I'm doing is striking the A string and then doing essentially a drag. It's not quite sweep picking, but it's just letting the pick bounce. You could think of it as a rake if I were doing it faster. But I'm literally just letting the pick at a slight angle roll across strings 4, 3, 2. You might find that it works naturally to do essentially what a classical player would call a rest stroke with the pick on the bass note, letting the pick literally glide and come to rest on the D string, so as opposed to picking out. Now you may also find though that you have an easier time setting up that drag if you're not resting on the D string. So this is resting. This is not. Ultimately, I think resting is more efficient as opposed to. But the thing that I find myself is that I have an easier time getting this to speak clearly if I can come in and land right there, because when I play the rest stroke on that A string, it makes the pick land on the string in a way that's a tiny bit awkward to give this the energy I want it to have. So slow down. That feels the most natural to me, but you should explore and see what works for your hand. Keep in mind, like I said, this is maybe a little more efficient, but I find it puts more weight on the hand, whereas that open free stroke and then coming back in lets some of the energy of that strong bass stroke dissipate, and that lets me keep this little roll lighter. Then I'm finishing with 4, 5, 6 with upstrokes. Now you could play them downs, but I find that this is a really efficient way to work. And it does illustrate a good general concept of picking that I try to apply whenever possible, which is whatever direction you're moving in, use that pick direction. Some people would play any arpeggio with alternate picking. But I find that awkward. I find this is much more efficient. And honestly more musical. Keeping in mind that there are individual pick strokes here, so you can see the movement at my fingertip, but also that I'm moving the arm to carry that fingertip from string to string. So this to me is the most efficient approach. Single pick stroke on the A, drag lightly, and then up, up, up. Now putting that in context, what's going to happen is we're going to be on our way to the C chord by the time we get to the last note of that A minor. So I'm going to lift my finger and you're going to hear the G string ring open. And then C bass. Now we're going to a D chord, which is only 4 strings instead of 5 like the A minor and C. So that means we actually run out of a beat, and that means we need to repeat the D bass note. Same thing with the F. back to A minor, C, and now this E7, and remember that this fingering requires us to skip the A string, so it's low E bass and then drag. A minor, open, C, D, F, so we're illustrating a few different things here. We have the single note bass stroke, which, by the way, if you take a look at my arm, you'll notice is basically a straight arm movement. All I'm really doing is pushing my thumb towards the floor. The hand does turn a little bit. It's not this, but it's not that either. I'm not a big fan of this movement. I find that it just takes a lot more muscular effort than doing this. So we have the single note stroke, we have the drag, which is almost a strum in slow motion, and then upstroke, upstroke. So I'm going to play it slowly and then up to tempo. I'm starting on A minor. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. C, D, F, A minor, C, E7. Again. A minor, C, D, F, A minor, E7, A minor, E7. Here it is up to speed, and I want you to notice that at this tempo, 6/8 just feels like 2. 1, 2, 1 and a 2 and a. And you might notice that at that faster tempo, that little turn in my hand when I do the drag is a little more pronounced. So you can see the difference between the basically straight pick to get a single note and the angled pick so it drags more easily across the strings. So there you have it. It's a great song, it's a lot of fun to play, and it illustrates some great points about picking technique. So I hope you enjoyed this lesson. If you don't subscribe to this channel, please do. Also comment below, I love to hear from you. I'm Dave Isaacs. Thanks for watching.